Tennessean wins game 1 of the championship series today. Game 2 tomorrow, 10 a.m. Central. It's possible the next time we talk to Willy after today, Derek Mason, he could be the father of a national champion. Willy, how are you feeling?
I am feeling good. Coach Willy is trying to keep the even keel, people. Even keel. Still one more step to climb. But the boys look really good today. 6-0 shutout. It's just awesome to watch how tight-knit this team is. They had a kid today, a sophomore named Cooper Mars, on 2 days rest to his second 7-inning scoreless performance. Just really stepped up for the guys. So one more step tomorrow, and they've got 2 games to do it. It's just like Division I. The championship series is 2 out of 3. So Endicott will try to force the rematch. They've got the Division III Pitcher of the Year pitching tomorrow. So the job is not done, but good step 1 today. But I know everybody wants to talk about the press conference, and so let's get to it. Big day in Nashville.
Let's do it. So today, Chris MacFarland was introduced by the Nashville Predators as their new president of hockey operations and general manager. I was at the news conference earlier today. I have one main takeaway from the news conference, and we'll play some of the clips. Of course, Chris MacFarland was asked about the direction of the team and the fate of Andrew Brunette, and we'll get into all of that. Derek, let's start with you. Mm-hmm. You watched the news conference. What was your number one takeaway from Chris MacFarland's first address as president of hockey operations and GM of the Nashville Predators?
You and I spoke about this briefly before the show, Adam, and you presented that question to me, or we just kind of got into it. And to me, it seemed like a guy that is in total control. They have convinced him he's in total control, and he should be, considering what he helped build with the Colorado Avalanche. But it's a guy that he seems like, he isn't going to have a problem making those hard decisions. Whereas we thought maybe Barry would have a problem making those really hard, even though Barry made some trades and he did some things. But there was a point where, people thought certain guys would get traded and they never did. Maybe because of some, attachment to the players or whatnot. But in this case, MacFarland comes in without that history or that relationship built up within the team. And that's not a bad thing at all. He's going to get it. But right now, this team is at a point where, either you're going to make the tough decisions or you're going to continue to put yourself in the position you've been in for the last few years. He's going to be able to hopefully make those decisions with maybe some of the guys that are popular within this franchise.
Along those lines, Willy, my main takeaway from listening to Chris MacFarland speak today at Bridgestone Arena, the decision for him to leave Colorado and come to Nashville clearly was emotionally draining. He got choked up a couple of times during his opening remarks. He spoke glowingly about his time in Colorado, all of the people who helped him get to this position. And look, I know, even when you have an emotional attachment to a place, if someone is willing to give you a promotion and presumably a lot of money, you will make the move. But that's besides the point. At this moment in time, Chris MacFarland does not have that emotional attachment to the Nashville Predators. It will happen. Reportedly, he was signed to a 6-year deal to lead the Predators hockey operations department. And over the course of those 6 years, he surely will develop that emotional attachment to this franchise. But at the moment, he doesn't have it. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing along the lines of what Derek was talking about. I think it's a good thing that at the moment, he does not have that emotional attachment to the Predators. This team needs someone with a clear-eyed approach, especially this offseason, maybe next offseason as the team navigates its next steps. They need someone with a clear-eyed approach, and I think Chris MacFarland has that. So he did not tip his hand much in regards to what he could do this offseason. We'll play some clips. We'll talk about them. But for me, Willie, the number one takeaway was he does not have that emotional attachment yet to this franchise. And I actually think that's a good thing as he starts plotting the course for the future.
I agree with both of you. I saw what you guys saw, Derek. I agree that I think he wanted to. I think he is relishing the opportunity to be the guy that is really going to drive everything. Everything is going to go through him. He got very emotional talking about Joe Sakic and the Sakic family, and I thought that was telling for sure how much respect he has for him and the opportunity that Colorado team gave him. And at the same time, I think it was clear that, Colorado valued him, but also didn't want to stand in his way, especially with what Nashville, I think, was offering for him to really be the leader of that. And, Adam, to your point, I thought it was interesting that he offered the term mushy middle before anybody else really characterized what Nashville was.
And I chuckled to myself when I heard that, and I thought of you because I know you don't like when people use that phrase. So I thought it was interesting when he used that phrase. I chuckled to myself at the news conference.
Yeah. I've always looked at I don't think it's a derogatory term. People use it like it's a bad thing. But the fact is that every year, mathematically, there are about 12 to 15 teams that you could say are in the mushy middle, right? Some people think that you're in the mushy middle if you don't make the playoffs, that you're automatically in the mushy middle. Some people think people that make the playoffs are in the mushy middle. And so I don't get that. But mathematically, if you think that means about half the teams are there, right? There's probably 8 teams every year that really could win it. And there's probably 6 or 8 teams that know at the beginning of the year they're not going to win it. And they're not trying necessarily to win it. They're a long way away. So that makes the majority of the league in the mushy middle every year. So I thought he was used it as a matter-of-fact term. And like you said, I was looking for clues on, is he going to tip anything in hand? I thought, and this is just my trying to read between the lines, I thought he certainly left himself some runway to go backwards to take the steps forward if that's what he decides to do. Do you agree, Adam? Like when he first started talking about, hey, I just wanted to know, do we want to high-five each other if we make the wild card, or do we want to win the championship? And to me, that was telling to me, reading between the lines, that told me he's willing to go backwards if that's what he thinks is best.
I agree with that. And there were a couple of things, and then we'll play a clip from one of the questions I asked MacFarland about the team. A couple of things he mentioned more than once. He mentioned that the players will dictate the process, that the players will show him what he needs to do by their play on the ice. And he also mentioned he needs to look under the hood, under the surface. He just got here. He's got a lot of conversations to have with players, coaches, scouts, etc. But I would agree with that assessment, Willie. Let's play the clip. So I asked MacFarland, when you look at the current roster, plus the prospects in the pipeline, how close does he think this team is to truly competing for the Stanley Cup again? And how will that dictate his approach in the near term? Here's what MacFarland said. Hi, Chris. Adam Bingen from 102.5 The Game. Welcome to Nashville. Congratulations on the new job. I'm going to piggyback off of Alex's question. When you look at the current roster, plus the prospects in the pipeline, how close do you believe this team is how close do you think this team is to truly competing for the Stanley Cup again? And how will that dictate your approach in the near term?
Again, it's a fair question. I think, I just got here, right? So I feel like I have a good handle on the team and the prospect pool, which is very attractive, right? But it is super attractive, but prospects have to be developed, right? And they all come at different times. Some need time to cook, some, pop quick, and become, staples of the franchise. We're going to let them, they'll tell us when they're ready type of thing. I'm going to need time to poke around under the hood here and to truly get a feel for that, and some of it might not come until the fall and rookie camp and training camp and the start of the season. I always say, at least the players will tell us, how the season starts, where we're at. We didn't make the playoffs this year, but there's turnover every single year. There is the danger of that we're in the mushy middle, right? So those are all kinds of things that we're gonna chat about internally and we'll figure it out. But there's lots of good players here. There's lots of good prospects, and there's picks, that will either be used to continue to build the prospect pool here and in the right age bracket, in my opinion, and or be used to acquire, a certain level of assets. So I've got a lot of things to kind of, work through here between now and the draft, and getting to know internal staff and the infrastructure here, which I'm super excited about. I know there's good people here, and I really look forward to getting to know them. That's kind of step one. But, to answer your question, we're going to look to get better. How quick that happens, again, the players will dictate that. And I think I got to Colorado and right around this time in May of 2015, and there had been some good players drafted there, right? So, the Nathan McKinnons, the Gabriel Landeskog's, the Matt Duchene's. And
maybe I'm wrong here, guys, when I hear that, but it doesn't sound to me like MacFarland is going to go all out this offseason to give this team the best chance to win immediately, quote unquote, go for it, those sorts of things. I get the sense from listening to him, getting to talk to him a little bit, he seems incredibly methodical. I just don't we were talking about this the other day, Derek.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the Predators and you see your core, it's aging but productive. Steven Stamkos had a 40-goal season this season. Philip Forsberg had a 40-goal season this season. Ryan O'Reilly just came off of arguably the best regular season of his career. Roman Josi had a solid season. You see those things. You've got all of these draft picks. You've got all of these prospects. Maybe you think to yourself, hey, I supplement or complement these core players while they still have gas left in the tank, and we try to go for it. I don't get the sense that's what MacFarland is going to do.
Well, he's to me, what I heard is what I heard at the beginning of the season last year. Barry Trotz saying, listen, the team will dictate whether I make moves or not. And he held true to it. That's why he didn't trade certain guys during the trade deadline, because he felt his team was in a position to make a run at the playoffs. And some of the guys that we thought were going to be traded, or that may end up not being here after a while, we thought those guys should have been possibly gone, but he chose to keep them. Why? Because he felt his team was right on the brink of making a playoff run. And they did. They didn't get to the finish line, but they made that run. They just didn't get in. So to me, it's more so of him reiterating what Barry said, but from the detachment standpoint, he can now make those moves.
I would say, Adam, it's a fact. It's reality. They're not, no matter what they do, short of something crazy like we've talked about, a theoretical Austin Matthews kind of guy becoming available and saying, I want to go to Nashville. I mean, these are the types of things that, to use Vegas as an example, if somebody like that pops up, Vegas has used that to their advantage many times, right? That would be one thing. most likely, they're not going to be a team that when the prognosticators come out and make their predictions at the beginning of next year in September, Nashville's not going to be on the list. So they are by definition going to be in the mushy middle. It'd be hard for them also to dismantle to such a degree that they're way down at the bottom. So the question is, how do you work your way out of the mushy middle in the next 2 to 3 years? It's not a 1 year thing. This is a big picture thing. So I think that's important. And I think let's leave it there. Now I know we're up against the break. We're going to be discussing this for a while, but I think that is what he's laying it out there. He said, I want to make the team better. How we do that remains to be seen as he goes forward. And he's got a lot of tools to work with, as he mentioned. Deep prospect pool, lots of cap space, lots of draft picks.
615-737-1025. Your reaction to Chris MacFarland's news conference introduced today as Predators president of hockey operations and general manager. Quickly, I do want to read this one text because it made me laugh. One texter says, Willy, wishing you and your son the best in the Division III finals. Hopefully they can overcome the devastating effect of the Adam Vingan jinx. First, the winning streak the Preds had over San Jose. Then he jinxed the Denison attempt at 45 straight wins by bringing it up 3 or 4 times last Thursday or Friday, and now bringing up one more win today. Here's all I'll say, texter. If Denison wins tomorrow, you have to text back in and say there is no Adam Vingan jinx.
I pray to God there isn't an Adam Vingan.
There's not.
Jinx. I pray to God.
There is not. There is no such thing. Stop making it happen.
Vingan's like Danhausen.
Yes.
That's what you are.
Let it go, please.
You are cursed. 615-737-1025. We'll continue the reaction to MacFarland's news conference. We'll get to your reaction. And of course, a lot of people want to know what MacFarland said about the future of Predators coach Andrew Burnett. We'll discuss that as well coming up next. 615-737-1025. Today, the Nashville Sounds take on the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. First pitch today is at 6:05 p.m. Catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, and Social Cantina.
Hello,
Hey.
sir. Chris
Hi,
Harris,
Chris.
WSMV. Nice to meet you. Welcome to town.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Yes, sir. Kind of along those lines, what will your process be like relative to making decisions about the coaching staff, and where does that fall in the pecking order of things that you have to do immediately?
Again, it's very similar. I know Andrew Burnett a lot from the scouting circles and in the past. I know he's a very good person. Derek McKenzie and Luke Richardson, I had the good fortune of having as players, so I know them a little bit during my Columbus days. So, I'm going to call all those guys this week. I'm going to meet with, when Jeff Keelty and Scott Nickel and the staff, get back from the combine. We're going to bring the pro guys in next week to get up to speed, and I'll chat with Brew, today or tomorrow, and we'll, like I said, I got to get a feel for things before, looking at all that type of stuff. So, but I look forward to chatting with Brew here today or tomorrow.
That was Chris MacFarland on Predators coach Andrew Burnett and others, but mostly Burnett. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you.
Coach Brew.
Coach Brew.
Yeah. It went from Bruno to Brew. Okay, I'm just saying.
Well, hold on a minute. Let me think this out.
Okay.
So if he's a hockey coach,
Yes.
and his nickname is now Brew, can we call him Cold Brew? No? Yes? Survey says?
Ding. I'll take it. I'm corny. Like
A
this.
lukewarm response to my joke. A lukewarm response. You know what? I've had I wouldn't call it a rough afternoon, but I was almost late to the show because on my way here, I stopped to get gas and I put the pump in the tank, and I thought that I set the whatever it's called. You just sit in your car. I sat in there for 3 minutes and I looked up at the ticker and it hadn't moved. So
I've done that before. So
I had to rush.
I know it can happen.
I had to rush to fill up. Yes, indeed. I had to fill up the tank. I had to be quick before I could get here. Anyway, so a lot of people wanted to know, of course, what the hiring of Chris MacFarland means for the future of Andrew Burnett, who is still under contract through next season. And like most of the questions MacFarland answered today, he left himself some wiggle room there. And my feeling all along, Willy, on Burnett has been this. I think Burnett starts the season with the Predators continuing to be their head coach. However, if the Predators get off to yet another bad start under Burnett, and let's face it, under Burnett, it's become a thing that the Predators get off to bad starts. They were able to overcome it once when they went on an historic point streak in the middle of the season. But I think if the Predators start slow again, MacFarland plays that card and relieves Andrew Burnett of his duties. But that's just my read on the situation. People looking for answers on the fate of Andrew Burnett did not get those answers today.
And I don't think I was expecting anything along those lines. Not today. And I was curious if he would say Andrew will be the coach. Like, I think they could have said that if they wanted to. And I my gut feeling tells me that I just don't think that that's a big thing on the priority list right now. It's much more about his, as he called it, looking under the hood, assessing and giving his own evaluation of just what does he have in the prospect pool and what's out there. Could he take a couple of these prospects and a couple of these picks and get somebody? He referenced a couple of times, Adam, the age range that he would like.
Yes.
And he basically insinuated he's not going to trade for somebody else who's 33 or 34, right? It's probably not, that's not a smart move. So that tells me he's got much more of a vision for the next 2 or 3 years. And in the meantime, could you make a go of it competitively with the players they have? As I said it yesterday, I think you could. I think that is out there. And to me, that wouldn't be a bad thing as long as it doesn't interfere with what you want the team to look like in 2 or 3 years. Now, some people disagree with me, I know, and say, the quickest way to do it is to go backward and get another guy that is picked in the top 10. He referred to Mikko Rantanen, who was the 10th pick in the draft. And so that's possible. So he didn't tip his hand at all, and he didn't say much about Andrew Brunette. But my thought is that Andrew Brunette is a good coach. He mentioned his respect for Derek McKenzie and Luke Richardson, who he knows from his Columbus days. And so my gut feeling is, why not ride it out with those guys, at least as the season unfolds, see where you are, and then go from there.
One texter says, outside of a 20-game stretch that got them into the playoffs where they got thumped, what have you seen that should make MacFarland want to keep Andrew Brunette? And here's what I've said about Brunette. I've had my questions.
Wait, they got thumped. What is he talking about? That series was a great series. The one is referring to Vancouver, right? That's about as even as the series.
Perhaps the texter is confusing. Perhaps the texter is confusing the Vancouver series with the Colorado series in 2020.
The Colorado series, Andrew Brunette was not the coach.
I'm just throwing it out there. I
know, but if you're gonna do that, get your facts straight. That's all I'm saying. He's not.
You hear that, texter? Willie, there was an audible "oh" in the back when you said that. Spicy Willie.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm stating the facts. I got thumped.
Willie got
if you watch
spicy.
The series between the Canucks and the Predators, no one team did not thump the other in that series.
I just think if you listen to him, he's trying to keep everything at arm's length right now. He's not committal. He's not committing to either side at this point. He's keeping it at arm's length, and he's trying to go in with no biases. So if we do get into the season and he's not doing the things, or the team isn't where I feel they need to be, then I'm going to make changes. But if we continue to go on a path that I think is good for this organization, we're going to keep it. He said as much as that when he said the players will dictate this. So if the players are dictating it, it also dictates the head coach's job. That's just the way I see it.
Well, one texter, let's go back to that first text, and then there's another text I want to get to. That regardless of whether they got quote unquote thumped in the playoffs, which is inaccurate, it was a very close series. What have you seen that should make the Predators want to keep Brunette? Here's what I will say on Brunette. I've had my questions about whether he is the right coach for this team. I came on these airwaves 20 or 25 games into last season and said that the Predators should fire Andrew Brunette. But the one thing I will say in Brunette's favor is this. I have never gotten the sense that this team at any point has quit on the coach. You can quibble with whether he's the right coach for the team in terms of how he wants to play versus the players he has on his roster, all of those things. But I have covered teams that have quit on their coach, and it's evident when that happens. If the Predators would have quit at any point on Andrew Brunette, they would not have made a push for the playoffs down the stretch. So whether Brunette stays or goes, one thing that I think is clear is that these players still do like playing for Andrew Brunette. They could have easily quit on him. They had multiple opportunities to quit on Brunette if they wanted to. And from afar, I never got the sense that happened. One texter says, Matt says, I've been in management for 20 years, and it blows my mind that reporters would ask, hi, welcome to Nashville. Are you firing the coach? What type of answers do reporters expect to get? Well, it's our job as reporters to ask the question. I remember when Barry Trotz came in and John Hines was still the coach, and John Hines was seated 2 seats to Trotz's left during the team's end of season news conference and said, John has a contract. There will be a process. I'm going to evaluate John Hines. He ultimately made the decision to move away from John Hines and bring in Brunette. I mean, one thing is clear, Willie and Derek. MacFarland's style in news conferences is going to be way different than Barry Trotz's style. Nobody compares to Barry Trotz in that regard. I think MacFarland is going to be good in these situations, but you're not going to get anywhere near as much information from MacFarland as we got from Trotz. There would be times when we would talk to Trotz every week, and I would say to myself, I can't believe he shared that with us. Like, he realizes we were on, right? And the mics were on, and people can hear this. I don't think you're going to get that from MacFarland. So again, on Brunette, we'll see what happens. But Willie, I think you would agree.
Adam, let me
Go ahead. Go
let
ahead.
me ask you this, Adam. Let's have you speak for the section of fans, and this is, like I've said all along when we debate this, and you heard Bill Haslam say it, using the reference of Carolina was built one way, Vegas was built a completely different way. Nobody's done it like Vegas has done it, so I'm not sure you could emulate Vegas if you wanted to. But if you're representing they're in the mushy middle, they need to go backwards to take the 2 steps forward. Then why would you really worry who the coach is this year? If you want them to go backwards, who cares who's coaching? Is that a fair thing to ask that group?
I think so.
Do you want them to lose? If you want them to lose, then if you think Andrew Brunette should be fired, why would you want him fired if he's not a good coach? And to me, the priority should not be who the coach is this coming year. It's much more about the building for the next 2 or 3 years, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. One texter says, help me. With only 1 year left on his contract, why would you fire Brunette now, to Willie's point, with so much more to figure out? Play it out and release him during the season, or don't extend his contract. That's sort of where I am, Derek. Start the season with Brunette as your coach, with his coaching staff. And if things go off the rails, as they have under Brunette in the first 15, 20, 25 games of the season, that puts you around Thanksgiving. Make a move then. Maybe someone is available then that isn't available now. So I agree with Willie. I don't think Brunette's fate should be high on the priority list for Chris MacFarland, but with a new GM coming in, and we know how much reverence Barry Trotz has for Andrew Brunette, and there were times where I said on this show that if Barry Trotz wasn't Andrew Brunette's boss, he would have been fired like 5 times by now. But I think I understand why people want to know, just because oftentimes in sports, when a new GM comes in, he wants, quote unquote, his guy. But to me, I agree with Willie. I don't think Brunette's status should be priority number 1, number 2, or maybe even priority number 3 this offseason.
No, it shouldn't. I think your priority is to, figure out why this team hasn't achieved what they have, figure out what personnel works with who and what. That's what you got to figure out first. And then, maybe down the line, once you get into the season, I think that's when you can get a true evaluation of how your head coach is doing. And he said as much when he said, listen, the season, the players dictate the season, but within that, what happened during that first part of the season? Did you have key injuries to key guys? Because that does affect, sort of your how you look at the game or how you perceive it and how you perceive the coaching job being done during that process. Now, if it was all, just straight and narrow, then he will have a better understanding after so many games, whether the players are responding to him, because that's what it's about. If the players are responding to him, like you said, they did last year, Adam, which they did, then you can take that into account. But if the players aren't responding to his coaching, that's when you got to do what's best for the organization.
615-737-1025 will continue to take your reaction to Chris MacFarland's news conference today. You heard his answer on the fate of Andrew Brunette. We'll get more into that. Plus, someone else who played a role in this process that a lot of you are interested in. We will discuss that coming up next as well. 615-737-1025. Boxing fans, 1025 The Game and the Team Boxing League have your chance to win tickets to see Nashville Smash take on the Atlanta Attack at Municipal Auditorium on Friday, June 12th. Text the keyword FIGHT, F-I-G-H-T, to the game text line right now at 615-737-1025 to enter for your chance to win.
Hey, this is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a goal to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some good news because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
there is a lot of interest in Nick Saban's role in all of this. How much influence did he wield throughout this process in finding Chris?
Yeah. The guy, we all know he's a winner, right? Biggest winner we all know. But the presence that he has and the way he evaluates things, it changed the entire interview process for us. There are times where we're looking at him saying, oh, I wish I asked that, or I wish I saw it that way. But the other is the credibility that he gives you when he reaches out, to Chris and they talk. It just changes, everything that you can do or would do. But I think it made the entire committee a little bit, better in how we approached it, how we evaluated it. The amazing thing after each interview was his process as he analyzed what he heard, why he heard it, what he thought wasn't said. And saying it's impressive is such a slight to him. It was incredible, right?
As you all know, Nick believes in process in a big way. And so he brought that same mindset, A, to our process of hiring somebody, but B, as he was questioning people and he was involved with everybody we talked to, you could see him drilling down, well, okay, then what? Then he doesn't ever take the easy first answer. It's like, ask the next question and the next one that sometimes you don't want them to ask. But he'd ask that. So incredible. Sean nailed it. Incredibly helpful and really thankful that he was willing to, jump in and be vitally involved in the process.
Someone tweeted out, he's a great recruiter still. And this is evidence of it. It truly, truly is.
That was Sean Henry and Bill Haslam on Nick Saban's involvement in the Predators GM search. By the way, Nick Saban, unable to attend today's news conference, he was testifying in front of Congress. So I think Nick Saban had a good excuse. He had a good excuse not to be at the news conference today. He had more important things to handle. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. And I wanted to ask Sean Henry and Bill Haslam about Nick Saban because, of course, where we are, there is a ton of interest in Nick Saban's involvement as part of the Predators ownership group. We heard back in February that Saban was going to be a part of the search process. So it was interesting to hear Henry and Haslam describe Saban's role in all of this. And I was talking to Sean Henry a little bit after the news conference, and we were talking about how sometimes being an outsider in a situation can be advantageous. Nick Saban doesn't know a ton, as far as I know, about hockey. He even said as much when he held a news conference here during the season after it was announced that he was joining the Predators ownership group. But having someone who has a lot of experience in a different realm, having that person in the room, being able to ask questions that people who are in the weeds may not even consider asking, I thought it was interesting to hear what Saban's role in this process was.
I mean, he's not just a winner, he's a champion. And he's arguably the greatest college coach in history. And some may even say he's the greatest coach, period. So when you're talking to someone like that, you're trying to figure out, how did he build a winning culture? How did he do it? What did it take? Certain moves you made, the attitude you have to have towards certain things, keeping it a sort of a detachment, but building a family within that building. And that's a hard thing to do, because at some point you're going to have to do something that is if you were doing it from the heart, you wouldn't, but you're doing it for the betterment of the team. Nick has had to do that throughout his career. So why not pick the brain of someone like that? And like you said, listen, it doesn't matter what sport you coached or played. If you are a winner, it translates, period. I can set Nick Saban in the middle of the room with 10 different people from 10 different sports, and they all will be talking the same language.
People, Willie, have been wondering about Saban's role in all of this. And Sean Henry and Bill Haslam said he played a pivotal role in the GM search.
I want to chime in on what DMase just said there. I do think that there is a lot that translates into all sports teams. And I even think you can bring it to the next level in a lot of just business teams, right? Whatever business you're in, the culture, the environment, and the process is a big part of that. And I would love to have heard Chris MacFarland chime in on his experience fielding questions from Nick Saban, because I loved what Sean said and what Bill Haslam said. They were saying, boy, those are great questions. I'm glad he asked those. But like, I'm watching it with the Tennessean baseball team right now. That culture, that chemistry is a 10 out of 10. That group, you can just tell when a group's got it. And I would hope that Chris MacFarland can learn some things from Nick Saban, and Nick Saban is only going to learn more and more about the uniqueness of a hockey as opposed to football as he goes forward. So I'm pleased to hear that Nick Saban seems invested. He's not just putting his name on something. He wants to be a part of it.
Let's get to some of your reactions. 615-737-1025. Chuck says, my takeaway from the news conference was our new GM. Now, Chuck just texted again and totally ruined his text. My takeaway from the press conference was our new GM is not going to make a fallacious decision. I don't think he will make a major move of coaches or current players out of the organization before the start of the new season. No, I can't guarantee that, of course. I would be surprised if there were no moves made between now and the start of the season. But again, I got the vibe from MacFarland and what he said today that I don't get the sense that he is going to make a seismic move in the offseason. But again, I'm still learning Chris MacFarland. I have to learn how to read him. Today was the first time I've ever met him. So maybe I'm reading it the wrong way. But as Willie said, he did leave himself a lot of wiggle room on a lot of things, depending on which way he decides to go. Andrew says, if MacFarland is convinced the Predators can compete for the Stanley Cup within 1 to 2 years, I think he will swing for the fences immediately. If he thinks it'll be 3 years or more, I believe he will aggressively, in all caps, clean house, like find a way to trade Saros, Yossi, Forsberg, and I am all for it. By the way, Mike in Lebanon says, my big takeaway is that the new owner and GM want a legit contender for the cup and not just a get in and find out what happens team. That's exciting. I think it was MacFarland who said that the question that cemented his decision was when he asked Haslam. Willie brought this up earlier. Are we trying to build a team that squeaks into the playoffs and finds out what happens, or are we trying to compete for a championship? Haslam said the latter. That's all MacFarland said he needed to hear. Now, I don't know why Haslam would say anything other than that, but go ahead.
But doesn't it, and we talked about this a bit yesterday, doesn't it sort of, is contradictory to what was said after the season last year, this past off season, going into the off season, where the players came out and said there's not going to be any changes? Doesn't what he envisioned and what the question that he has is the total opposite of what that message was? I'm just asking.
So you're referring to Steven Stamkos and other players, and I believe Barry Trotz, saying at the end of the season back in April that there is no intention of rebuilding. I believe Steven Stamkos said the message is we are going to try to compete for the playoffs again next season. I'm sure MacFarland is going to try to do what he can if he thinks the team is prepared for that, built for that, to try to make the playoffs. But in terms of, I think the idea, Willie, of MacFarland using all of these draft picks and his prospects, unless someone falls into their lap, like a Matthew Tkachuk situation from a few years ago, unless someone falls into their lap, so to speak, I don't get the sense MacFarland is going to be aggressive this offseason and trying to position the Predators to compete this next season.
Only time's going to tell with all of that. I just don't think that it would be, even if you wanted to completely blow it up, that would be really difficult to do in a smart way. Because then, are you willing to just take pennies on the dollar for some really good assets just to be bad next year? I don't know that that's the way to go. I think what I would stress is what they have said and what I've been saying for a long time. It's not all or nothing. You don't just go for it or stink. There's a lot of in between. There's a lot of nuance on how to build from where they are now. They are, as a fact, in the mushy middle. He said it himself. And while you're in the mushy middle, you can still be progressing in the right direction. I think there's this sense if you're in the mushy middle, you're stuck. You're not going anywhere. I don't buy that. I don't think that that's true. I think, for example, young players playing around Steven Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, Roman Josi, guys like that who set such a great example on knowing how to win, that's valuable. And so that's just one example of what I would say of what the options are. But if he thinks the option is to trade Ryan O'Reilly and then have a talk with Steven Stamkos and say, where would you be willing to go? Then that's what he's getting paid to do. That's what the Predators just hired him for, is to find the way, the quickest way, the best way to get back into a situation where you're in a window that you could win the whole thing. Something that, as we said, by definition, a lot of people think if you lose in the first round of the playoffs that you're in the mushy middle. I don't buy that, but that would be by definition that only 8 teams have a chance to win it every year. So getting into that group of 8, whatever he thinks is necessary to get there, that's what he's going to do, and he's got the license to do it.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your reaction to Chris MacFarland's news conference, but coming up next, I want to talk about something regarding Jeffrey Simmons under Robert Saleh. I'm wondering if there is another level Jeffrey Simmons can reach after having a career year last year. We'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. Nick Suss of the Tennessean will join us in roughly 15 minutes as we get into the Tennessee Titans. Speaking of the Tennessee Titans, ladies and gentlemen, have a primetime, nationally televised game in the preseason. Sunday, August 23rd, against the Seattle Seahawks, the defending Super Bowl champions, 7 p.m. Central on Fox.
The only difference in this and last year is last year he bragged about giving us a preseason primetime game.
Mike North doing us a solid, giving us a Tennessee Titans primetime preseason game.
This year, he didn't even give the common courtesy to tell us we'll get it. He just let it be.
Because he thinks Tennessee Titans fans should be accustomed to this by now. Expect your primetime nationally televised game to be in late August. So the Tennessee Titans have a primetime game in the preseason against the Seattle Seahawks, 7 p.m. Central on Fox. Get excited, folks. Nick Suss, as I mentioned, of the Tennessean, will join us in roughly 15 minutes. But I want to talk about Jeffrey Simmons. We talked a little bit about Jeffrey Simmons yesterday. I do want to talk about Jeffrey Simmons on the field this season. Jeffrey Simmons had a fantastic season last season for the Tennessee Titans. He had a career high in sacks with 11. He had 26 quick pressures, fourth among defensive linemen, according to the NFL. He caused 5 turnovers because of his pressures, which was second most for defensive linemen, according to the NFL. No matter how you slice it, the eye test, the fancy stats, Jeffrey Simmons had a fantastic season last season. But I was listening to Mina Kimes' podcast, and she had on someone named Brentley Weissman. He is a former NFL scout. And listen to Brentley Weissman talk about what he expects of Jeffrey Simmons under Robert Saleh.
To me, this defense starts and ends with Jeffrey Simmons. Last year, he led the team with 11 sacks, first in the NFL out of interior defensive linemen with a 19.4 pass rush win rate. So he was just outstanding last year, playing in this Robert Saleh 4-3 scheme that asked the 3-tech to get upfield and penetrate more than what his 3-4 hybrid scheme last year did. I think Simmons could be just another level this year. I think he could go for 13 to 14 type of sack season and really allow the players I mentioned, John Franklin Myers, Jermaine Johnson, to eat on one-on-ones. I think this front four is drastically improved since last season. And when you think about Robert Saleh's scheme and the players he's coached at that 3-tech spot, DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, Quinnen Williams, all 3 of those players had their best year under Robert Saleh. Jeffrey Simmons is more talented than all 3 of those players. And so I think he's just going to be a monster this year.
A monster this year. Willie Donick, how should we set our expectations for Jeffrey Simmons in year 1 of Robert Saleh?
I'm not going to take what that guy said and all of a sudden say, okay, he's going to have 14 sacks. But I mean, it's a good theory. It's all plausible. I think we're all curious on what Robert Saleh can do with Jeffrey Simmons in particular and this defense, especially with the additions that they made, the changes they made. You know, it's not unlike this is to me, again, they're still trying to build a foundation, and they've had to switch. They've had to do a couple of 180s. Last year they had Denard Wilson. Well, let's go out and get Denard Wilson, the types of players that's going to work in his system. And now they're going to scrap that and do something completely different because it didn't work out. And so you're starting over. So everything is a theory right now. Nothing is known. We know Jeffrey Simmons is a Hainsworth had those 2 dominant seasons. It was after you left. You saw a young Albert Hainsworth who was just scratching the surface. But there were 2 years in there, 07 and 08, where he was as good as any player in the league on defense. And Jim Schwartz really figured out how to maximize and get matchups for everybody else. And guys like Kyle Vanden Bosch and David Thornton, solid players, not spectacular. Those guys got better because of guys like Keith Bullock and especially Albert Haynesworth those 2 years.
Well, you're taking a guy within the defense, and from a statistical standpoint, or from a developmental standpoint, I've seen Jeffrey Simmons get better each and every year. Outside of the year that he got hurt, you saw him just getting better. And yes, last year was the best, at this point, the best statistical career he's had since he's been in the NFL. You believe there's still more to this player. And it may not even be from the physical aspect. It's just knowing offenses a lot better, studying the guys that are blocking you a lot more, really investing your time into mentally figuring out the game, as opposed to just going in the weight room and running on the track and doing all this other stuff, which is great. But once you start to perfect it, that's how you go from good to great, is when you can diagnose a play even before it happens. That has nothing to do with your physical ability at all. That's why Ray Lewis was so great, because even as he declined in his physicality, mentally he got better. So he can point things out. You can go to the Urlachers. You can go to all these great players, especially at the linebacker position, where as they started to decline, they became more cerebral in a sense. And that added to their game even more than the physical. And that's, to me, that's what has the potential for Jeffrey to, from solid to unlocking Jeffrey. And the fact that they're going to be doing a lot of rotating, which means you're going to get a fresher Jeffrey Simmons each and every game than you did prior. You're going to be able to rotate him a lot more, where you're going to get peak Jeffrey Simmons when you need him.
What intrigues me most, and it was touched on in that clip, is I'm intrigued by Jeffrey Simmons being surrounded by experienced pass rushers. Jermaine Johnson and John Franklin Myers. I'm really interested to see, to your point, Derek, I'm really interested to see how Simmons does when opponents will have to also game plan for Johnson and Myers. And if Brentley Weissman, the scout in the clip we played from the Mina Kimes show, if he's right and Simmons takes up a lot of double teams and that allows Johnson and Myers and others to get sacks, that'll be great, obviously. So that's one aspect of this I'm interested in.
Yeah, and that may happen. And that's what ultimately, that is what the goal is that you have a guy on your defense that affects everyone else around you in a positive way. Great players tend to affect the people around them in a positive way, to whereas if I'm working hard and I'm getting double teamed, you're getting single coverage all the time. Someone's singling you up, so you should win based upon your ability to play this game. So my ability to take up space, in a sense, or take up opponents, should help everybody around Jeffrey Simmons. And a lot of that is, some of it is physical, but I think a lot of it, learning how to be a better defensive player for everybody. That's what he's continuing to learn as a professional, I believe.
615-737-1025. Can Jeffrey Simmons reach another level under Robert Saleh, and what would that look like? Jeffrey Simmons coming off of a monster season with 11 sacks, one of the most impactful interior defensive linemen in the NFL, if not the most impactful interior defensive lineman in the NFL. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Nick Suss, Tennessee Titans reporter for the Tennessean, will join us. We'll ask him about Jeffrey Simmons. He also toured the new Nissan Stadium today. We'll ask him about that as well. 615-737-1025. Speaking of the Tennessee Titans, all of our offseason coverage here on 1025 The Game is presented by Tennessee Brewworks. Raise a glass with Tennessee Brewworks, proud partner and official craft beer of the football offseason coverage here on 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan and Donick 1025. The Game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Be listening this hour for your chance to win a pair of tickets to the Nashville Predators Beer Festival at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, June 20th. In the meantime, let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Nick Suss, Tennessee Titans reporter for the Tennessean. Hello, Nick. How are you? All right, Nick. So yesterday we referenced your story at the Tennessean about the Myles Garrett and A.J. Brown trades and what they say about the Titans and Jeffrey Simmons. As you wrote, the Titans have prioritized Simmons' leadership on a rebuilding team over the assets they could acquire for him in a trade. I'm curious how you feel about that. How much do you think Simmons' presence outweighs his tangible value in the potential trade?
Well, that's kind of two questions, if you don't mind me answering two different ways.
Go for it.
His value from a just singularity perspective, you are almost certainly not going to replace Jeffrey Simmons by drafting his replacement. The likelihood of picking somebody who will be as good or better than Jeffrey Simmons at the position Jeffrey Simmons plays is very, very low. So if that is the question of simply, are they valuing his performance over assets that you can replace him with? From the very literal definition of replacement, I think that does make some sense. You're probably not going to replace that guy one for one if you get a mid to late first round pick for him. Now, when we talk about value, when we talk about positional need, and we talk about leadership, and we talk about things that aren't quite as quantifiable as guy had X number of sacks, guy had X number of pressures, had X number of pass rush win rate, all that stuff. If you're talking about it just from a football perspective, that's when things get a little bit murky. Because, look, realistically, if you trade Jeffrey Simmons for the Quinnen Williams deal that I referenced, if you go out and get a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a rotational player at the position you traded him from, it would stand to reason that a team that is good at drafting would get better as a result of that trade. You don't need to go out and get his replacement. You can go out and get a player with the first-round pick, a player with the second-round pick, while retaining your capital in those positions, and boom, you've turned one first-round talent player in Jeffrey Simmons essentially into 5 top 50 draft picks, which should stand to reason. 5 top 50 draft picks should be better than 1 top 50 player. Now, that's when the leadership aspect comes in, and that's when the timeline aspect comes in. And I think Mike Borgonzi has said, and I think that this reflects the Titans' decisions, they want people in the room who can show the young core the reward you get for playing well with this franchise. They want to show, if you develop here, if you pan out here, we will reward you. And the only 2 players on roster who can symbolize that are Jeffrey Simmons and Amani Hooker. Hooker, a very good player, but definitely not the same caliber of standard bearer that Jeffrey Simmons is. So the leadership is important, and the do as I say, do as I do aspect of what Jeff brings to the locker room is very important. But I think even beyond that, it's the symbol of, this is what happens if you play well here, versus look at what Cleveland just did. There's an argument to be made that Myles Garrett's top 3 player in franchise history, certainly in the modern Browns era since they came back from the dead. He got shipped off. He waived his no trade clause. He left. That is a very different symbol for the front office to be sending to young players than what the Titans seem to be doing with their older core.
Let's stay on Simmons, Nick. He is coming off of a career year, and now he has Robert Saleh coaching him. How much better do you think Simmons can be with Saleh at the helm and more pass rushing talent around him?
It's a really tricky thing to answer, because I think that from a percentage basis, from how productive he is relative to how often he's on the field, I do think you will see improvement. But I wouldn't be surprised if the counting stats go down, simply because I think he's going to be on the field a lot less. The way Robert Saleh explains it, and the way that all of his coaches tend to explain it, is if you are able, as a defensive lineman, to play more than 4 consecutive plays in this scheme without coming out, you are playing the scheme incorrectly. We're used to seeing Jeff on the field almost every snap. I can't remember his exact usage rates. If you guys have that in front of you, please cite it. But I would venture a guess he was on the field almost 3/4 of the Titans' defensive snaps last year, certainly the meaningful snaps when he was healthy. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. And because of that, it would not be a shock to see some of those counting stats, total pressures, all of that thing go down. But maybe it's actually just the run stopping stats that you're going to see go down, because I think that more of an emphasis will be put on him being on the field as a pass rusher, him being on the field on the downs where he can, as freshly as possible, make the biggest difference possible. If he does that, and if he has 12 sacks, if he has 90 pressures, if he has one of these absurd seasons that really only Aaron Donald and Chris Jones have ever pulled off modern last 10 years, last 15 years football, yeah, people aren't going to miss that he's not playing super well on first down or playing super often on first down. But beyond that, yeah, not really a problem.
One more from me, Nick, before I hand it off to Derek. You toured the new Nissan Stadium today. Tell us something that you saw that fascinated you.
I'll tell you something that I saw and I was told that interested me. At concerts, they're going to have bars on the event level, like actual field level. And you will be able to walk up to the bar and order a drink and still not have to show that person a credit card. You'll just be able to walk in and walk out, and the sensors will be able to know what drink you're holding. And that feels so futuristic and so somewhat techno-dystopian. And a couple of things that
a little terrifying.
Scare me about how advanced technology is. And what they're going to do is they're going to have 4 or 5 different lines according to how much each drink costs, and the sensors will be able to pick up which line you walked out of and be able to value the drink based off of your exit point and that sort of thing. But that is technology that I did not know existed, that I find utterly fascinating. I know more people want to care about the roof progress, and the grid is up, and stadium progress still going to finish sometime around February 2027. Roof still on schedule to be enclosed sometime around October-ish is what I was told. But yeah, some of these really futuristic touch points are fascinating to me.
We'll talk with Nick Suss of the Tennessean. You know, Nick, they have a version of that in some airports where in order for you to get in, you just tap your credit card, you walk in, and you grab whatever you want and walk right out. So
same principle, yeah.
So they've taken it even, you don't even have to do that, huh?
No, you'll tap your credit card on the way in. It's the same thing, but like there's a difference between grabbing a bag of chips and the sensors being able to see the bag of chips, and the sensor being able to tell the difference between whether you got vodka or whiskey. Like that is a next step for me. I'm very intrigued by that.
Now let's stick with Jeffrey Simmons, because I do believe that in order for this defense to be the defense that Saleh wants it to be, yeah, if you can play more than 4 plays, then you're not playing it right. So which means I need to have a rotation. If those guys around Jeffrey are better, that enables him to rotate even more. So maybe Jeff's, from a statistical standpoint, it goes down, but how he learns the defense helps him and it helps the team.
Oh, for sure. It absolutely does. And I think one thing that fans should remember and fans should pay attention to when we get to August and September and we start forecasting who's going to make the 53, what's the practice squad going to look like. In order to pull this off, in order to play defense the way Saleh likes and the way that will allow Jeffrey Simmons to play this way, you're going to need to be 8-9 deep on the defensive line. And that's not counting true stand-up edge rushers. You're going to need a lot of players who can play those positions and who can play those positions on first and second down without you sacrificing the ability to get to third down. So when we're sitting here speculating about who's the number 6 receiver or who's the number 4 tight end or who's the number 4 running back, those might be places you have to not have on your active roster in order to justify the rotation you need to play this way. So you got John Franklin Myers and you got Jermaine Johnson and you got some of these players who are better next to Jeffrey Simmons. But we also have to talk about the class of free agent they signed that's like Jordan Elliott and Malik Herring and some of these players, Jackie Marshall, who they drafted in the late rounds. Some of those players who are going to need to be valuable and make plays on first and second down so that Simmons can come in on third down and wreak havoc. That really is going to be an important part of this roster. And you might end up sacrificing, for example, somebody like Bryce Oliver or KJ Osborne if they have to be on the practice squad.
Now, we've talked a lot about these other positions, whether it be the running back position, wide receiver, and definitely the quarterback. And we do touch on the offensive lineman. But I'm trying to figure out, how is this right side going to work itself out? It seems like Slotman is the center moving forward. But outside of that, you got your right guard that you're still trying to figure out. How do you think this all sort of plans itself out or plays itself out as the season goes on, or even camp right now goes on?
If I understand the Titans the way I think I do believe that it is the preference of the front office for the young homegrown players to be thrown into the fire as early as possible. I also think it's the preference of the front office for Cam Ward to not get hurt. So while we're engaging in these competitions, while we're making our way through camp, I would not be surprised to see Austin Schlottman get the majority of reps at center and Cordell Volson get the majority of reps at right guard, simply because they are the ones who you have the quality control of knowing they know how to be pros. Jackson Slater had a rookie year last year, but really didn't play very much. And then you have the two rookies, obviously, in Carmona and Coogan. We will see how they can acclimate. I would not be shocked if by midseason the Titans are willing to give those rookies bigger roles. I wouldn't be shocked if Slater kind of won one of the roles earlier than that, simply because I do believe it's this franchise's preference to throw young players into the fire, give them learning experiences, learn through playing. Kevin Winston's a perfect example of this. Kevin Winston admitted the other week that he never felt good last year. He never felt ready. He never felt 100% like himself, but he learned through failure and he got better on the fly and he figured out how to play because the Titans exposed him to football. They exposed him to playing. I wouldn't be shocked if that happens also on some of these offensive line spots, but the difference between safety and offensive line is if a safety gives up a big play, your defense gives up a touchdown, and that stinks. If an offensive line gives up a big play and your quarterback is hurt, that changes the future. That changes the whole season. That's a lot harder to come back from.
Now, sticking with the offensive lineman, and I know this isn't a big topic, and nor should it be, but obviously they agreed to Peter's 5th year. Do you think they get a deal worked out during the season with Peter? Because he's one of those guys, if you're trying to build a team and trying to build a culture, these are guys that you sign before they actually are on the market to get other deals from other people or other teams.
I don't think Peter's going to hit the market. Whether that means he gets a contract during camp, whether that means he gets a contract next January, February, before he ever hits free agency, we'll see how. I think it behooves Peter to wait longer. If he has another great season, if he has a Pro Bowl, All-Pro type season and starts getting the national accolades that he didn't get last year, despite arguably deserving them, you get a bigger contract. So it would not shock me if that calculus weighs in. Titans probably want to sign him sooner because they think highly of him and he doesn't have some of those nationally front-facing accolades yet. I understand why there might be some push and pull with that, but I heart of hearts, I don't think either party wants him to hit free agency. I think that the Titans want him around. I think Peter wants to be around. I think that contract will eventually get worked out.
We're talking to Nick Suss from the Tennessean, and he covers, of course, the Tennessee Titans. So, Nick, we really enjoyed your analysis yesterday in the aftermath of that big trade involving Myles Garrett. So, I would like to ask you, if you were the GM of the Titans and the Rams called you with that same deal do you think you would have done it? Do you think that would have been the best thing for the Titans, that same return?
So if I was the Titans or if I was the Browns?
If you were the Titans.
And so it's Jeffrey Simmons instead of Myles Garrett?
Exactly. Same return, though.
I am sprinting to the phone and screaming yes as loudly as I can. And this is no disrespect to Jeffrey Simmons. Myles Garrett's the best player in football. Like, full stop, Myles Garrett's the best player in football. The Rams just traded for the best player in football, and the package they gave up reflects that. Jared Verse last year was 6th in the NFL in total pressures as an edge rusher. Now, his total pressures were dwarfed by Myles Garrett's because he's the reigning defensive player of the year who just played one of the best single seasons in NFL history. But that's a higher leverage position, and that is a player in Jared Verse who I think really specifically fits Robert Saleh's mold. You're going out and getting a future top 10, potential top 5 player at the, in my opinion, second most important position in the NFL. And you're getting a first-round pick and a second-round pick and a third-round pick for it. I would not have hesitated to accept that if the deal was for Jeffrey Simmons. But I don't think that deal would have been offered because for as great as Jeffrey Simmons is, he ain't Myles Garrett.
All right. So, Nick, you've covered teams in the South. For people that don't know, Nick used to cover Ole Miss, Mississippi State before he came up to Nashville to cover the Titans.
Yep.
But here's your quiz question for the day. Okay. I am at the Division III College World Series between Denison University and Endicott College. Your quiz right now on the spot, Nick. I'm putting you out there on the air. Can you tell me where those two schools are located?
I'm just shocked LSU units didn't make it this year. Aren't they usually the powerhouse in D3 baseball? Denison and Endicott. I'm going to sound silly. I think Denison's in Iowa. Is that right? Sounds right, but it's wrong. And Endicott, let's say that's in Kentucky.
Unfortunately, Nick, you are 0 for 2.
That's fine.
Willie, tell him the answers.
Okay, Denison is located in Granville, Ohio, which is not far from Columbus, and Endicott College is in Massachusetts. Somewhere near Boston, relatively speaking.
I'll take that. If you guys want to talk about college baseball, I will do this for hours. That is the main sport I watch in my spare time. Unfortunately, my channels don't get the D3 World Series.
Yeah, you got to go to ncaa.com. It's good stuff. So tomorrow at, let's see, it would be at 10 a.m. is the next tilt.
Willie's son one win
For
away.
all the marbles.
Willie's son is 1 win away from a national championship.
Oh,
so
my
we're
goodness.
very
That is
excited.
incredible.
We're very
That's
excited.
incredible.
Nick Suss.
Adam, don't say it.
I'm not going to say anything because
Don't say
I'm
anything.
apparently a jinx. Nick Suss of the Tennessean has been our guest on DMase, Vingan, and Donick. Nick, as always, a pleasure. We'll catch up soon.
Yeah, appreciate y'all.
615-737-1025. By the way, one texter during our conversation with Nick when he was talking about the touchless bar or whatever it is. One texter says, they have that at Bridgestone Arena. I freaked out the first time my son walked in, got a drink, and walked out without paying. I thought he was stealing. I'm sure there could be some of that at the new Nissan Stadium. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we do have to take a moment to talk about that outstanding Stanley Cup final game we were treated to last night between the Vegas Golden Knights and Carolina Hurricanes. We will do that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingen and Donick, 1025 The Game. I am not cursed, but people are convinced that I am. So people are convinced that because I brought up that the Tennessean Big Red are 1 win away from being a national champion, that they are not going to win the national championship tomorrow. And all I have to say is if Mahoney Donick and his crew come through, no more jinx talk, okay? That's null and void if Tennessean wins the D3 title tomorrow. That's all I'm saying.
I would gladly take that.
That's all I'm saying. I think that's fair. Speaking of title games, sort of. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup final last night. Derek, on Monday, we talked about this. I was complaining about the people I saw over the weekend who were like, well, the casual fan may not like this series or may not watch this series because it's Las Vegas and Raleigh, North Carolina. And I just said, shut up and enjoy. And if you turned on the game last night, you absolutely enjoyed that game, unless you're a Carolina Hurricanes fan. The Vegas Golden Knights win 5-4. Tomas Hertl with the game-winning goal, 2:34 left in regulation. And by the way, what a backhand pass by Colton Sissons
Goodness.
on that play to set up Hertl for the game-winning goal. I did also see this. Maybe close your ears, Predators fans, for just a second. I saw that Hertl's goal last night was the latest go-ahead goal in a Stanley Cup final game since Patrick Hornquist's series-clinching goal for the Pittsburgh Penguins against the Predators in Game 6 in 2017. So, sorry to bring that back up, but the Vegas Golden Knights win 5-4. Here is an astounding stat, Willy Donick. Road teams before last night, road teams were 0-55 when down multiple goals at any point in a Stanley Cup final Game 1. So the Vegas Golden Knights made history last night as the first road team to come back from multiple goals on the road in Game 1.
I was surprised on how they did it last night. We had a good breakdown of it yesterday, but I would have thought that Vegas, if they were going to win Game 1, it would be much more of a defensive mindset, more of a 3-2, 3-1 kind of game. 5-4, what a great game. That was just awesome to take in. But I think we talked about it. Vegas, they're just battle tested. They know how to win. And that was a big blow to Carolina there. I think Carolina had such momentum, but I think for Vegas to be able to do it in the way that they did, falling behind right at the beginning of the game like that, that has got to be not that they needed a confidence boost, but I think that put a little seed of doubt in Carolina the way it went. And then let me ask you this, Adam, or let me ask DMase this. DMase, do you feel like Adam violated anything in terms of the jinx on Friday or Monday when I wasn't, or maybe I guess it would have been Friday that the winning streak stopped? Did he violate the code of the jinxes? I since I've been back on there, I don't think he's been out of bounds with anything he said the last couple of days.
I think not that he said it was a definite, because he never proclaimed that it was a definite, but he was pushing it as if, hey, listen, they're going for this streak to break this streak. And Mahoney and his crew and the Big Red, he never said they were going to do it. It was always both of us was
okay.
a,
It's like cut me some slack.
Yeah, it was just like but I guess when Adam brings it up, that's what kills it, period.
Yeah, your reputation was blown in that Sharks game, Adam.
Yes.
You have a stigma attached to you now.
Exactly. So he wasn't totally out of bounds, but the minute Adam brings up something like that, the fan base get triggered.
Let me also bring up one thing about the Stanley Cup final that I noticed. Bill Belichick was at the game last night, sitting in the suite with Gary Bettman. Those Tar Heels, they need the red carpet rolled out for them. Meanwhile, John Shire sitting with the fans last night. He's a man of the people. That's all I'm saying. Bill Belichick all snooty up there in the suite with Gary Bettman. Meanwhile, John Shire and Con Knippel down there with the fans. Knippel wearing a jersey. See, I'm just telling you. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
good luck with that. Good luck with that, Adam. Trying to convince people that Duke people are men of the people. That's just
Grayson Allen, man of the people.
I'm just I just noticed it, and
Anytime he could take a jab at a Tar Heel, he will.
I'm just saying, but I will be interested to see how Carolina responds to this game. One thing is clear about both of these teams. If you make a mistake, more likely than not, you are going to pay for it. And both teams made mistakes last night. It happened 25 seconds into the game with Nikolai Ehlers turning, I think it was Shea Theodore, inside out at the blue line and scoring a breakaway goal. And then Ehlers scored another breakaway goal on another turnover. And both of these teams, they do not miss their opportunities when their opponent makes a mistake. And Carolina specifically, I think of Carolina more in this mold than Vegas, but Vegas is very good at it too. Carolina last night, Willie, uncharacteristically sloppy, I would say, and the Golden Knights made them pay for it.
PK,
I think that. Go ahead, Derek.
No, I was just going to say, PK was talking about this last night in between periods about how Carolina was allowing the inside goals. They were being undisciplined, and it was uncharacteristic of the Hurricanes, and how, the Golden Knights were able to come back and, make it a game again. And he absolutely was right. A lot of times it was just their miscues that allowed, Vegas to be in a position to score.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think another thing to watch for in this series is the contrasting styles. They always, what is the boxing term, the styles make fights. I think this is going to be a great series because Carolina plays that man-to-man defense that very few teams can do well, but that is their thing, right? They play man-to-man. But if you can break them down, I think there's a higher standard when you play man-to-man. If one guy screws up, right, it's that's you can give up big chances. But they're so good at it, they smother you, and usually you're not able to get enough of those breakdowns to make it worthwhile. But obviously they were not as sharp as they usually are last night. And then on the other side, Vegas has got that. They got layers of D. They put the big defenseman in front of the goal, and they take away the middle. They'll sit back a little bit more. They'll let you have the outside. You think you're there, but you just keep running into the weeds, right? You just keep running into these big trees that they've got in front of their goalie. So two very, very different teams, and I think it's going to go 7. I do think that there's going to be a lot of twists and turns in this, but round 1 to Vegas.
One texter says, what are all those naysayers watching instead? Love Island?
They do got a new season of Love Island.
What's wrong with Love Island?
I've seen the ads.
There's nothing wrong with it. I haven't started watching it yet.
I retired from those shows after all of the VH1 shows. Rock of Love, Flavor of Love, Rock of Love Bus, I Love New York. I retired from the dating shows back then. But Willie, you were not on the show on Monday.
I do have to say that last night, just on the subject, we were having a family powwow. We called Evie back in Nashville for her thoughts, and she and her roommates were watching Love Island, and they were like, she was like, I got to call you back. I was like, you can't call back. We're calling from the College World Series. We need to talk. So her roommate's like, okay, it's okay, Evie. We'll pause it for a minute. But yeah, new season of Love Island, man, that's big stuff.
Well, you need something new to watch now that Euphoria is over. But the other,
I haven't no spoilers. I haven't watched the finale yet. I got one episode I got to get to.
But you weren't on the show on Monday, but I was talking about how I saw a lot of this before the series started. Like, hey, the casual fan may not watch this series because it's Vegas and Carolina, and they're not two big media markets, and they don't have a lot of star power, this, that, and the other thing. But my message was just shut up and enjoy. Even if you are a casual hockey fan, the most casual of hockey fans, I said, watch this series. It is going to be outstanding hockey. And I think last night proved as such. I am really intrigued to see how this series progresses. Earlier today at the Chris MacFarland news conference, Bill Haslam brought up the Golden Knights and Hurricanes when talking about how, hey, there are many different ways to build a team. And we've talked about this. Vegas has maybe 2 players on their roster who were actual draft picks of the Vegas Golden Knights. Most of the
That's
team
crazy.
has been built through trade. And Carolina has more of their own draft picks on the roster, a lot of important players. Andrei Svechnikov, Seth Jarvis, Jackson Blake, Sebastian Aho, Jacob Slavin. But they've also complemented those players with savvy trades, such as Taylor Hall and Logan Stankoven and Keandre Miller, Jordan Stahl, etc. So there are multiple ways to build a team, but it's a fascinating case study, Willie, on roster building when you look at these two teams.
I agree. I think we made that point, and I think Rod Brindamore, to me, is the big part of that, right? Rod Brindamore's unique ability as a coach. He is really considered a guy that can really elevate the talent around him, but I don't think he would have as easy time doing it if they weren't as savvy as they are at not only some of the draft picks we made. We were talking about some of the guys that they've picked, subtle guys that aren't in those top 5 picks, right? But are really good players. Seth Jarvis, I think, was a low first round pick, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Adam? Maybe in the 15s or the 20s.
I think he was in the 20s.
Somewhere in there. Might have been, yeah. I'm thinking of some other guys that they have. Aho was a high first round pick. Svechnikov was, but they've got a lot of guys that they picked in lower rounds.
Jarvis was the 13th. Jarvis was the 13th pick.
Okay.
Aho was a second round pick, an early second round pick.
A second round pick for Aho. Interesting.
Yes.
But their ability to identify Rod Brindamore's system and say, you know what, that is where a lot of energy is coming from. We've got to find the players that play well in that man-to-man defense, right? The man-to-man that I talked about. That's not easy to play. So you got to have the right players. A great example, and Adam, I'm sure you've heard people talking about this. Keandre Miller is a great example. He was playing for the Rangers, very good player, but still a lot of people were saying, that guy has got a lot going for him, but he just hasn't seemed to be able to unlock his ability, right? He had the tools. They make a deal, and I think they used some of the pieces they got in the Mikko Rantanen exchange, right? And threw some of those at the Rangers to get Keandre Miller. And they identified, they think, okay, Miller will play well in our system. And man, he has gone to another level. And so that's an example of a guy where like, man, why didn't we know that? I'm sure the whole rest of the league is going, man, they're getting a lot of mileage out of Keandre Miller. The Rangers couldn't do it. Why can Carolina do it? Well, they identify what works in Rod Brindamore's system. But you can do that because you stuck with Rod Brindamore for however many, 8 or 9 years he's been the coach now. And I think it's easier when you have that continuity. And that's a direct contrast to Vegas, where if you don't like the flavor one week or the next month, you make a change, right? And that's worked for them. Changing the coach every so often has worked for them for whatever reason.
615
more than one way to do it.
615-737-1025. We will get back into Chris MacFarland's news conference today, his first as president of hockey operations and general manager of the Nashville Predators. 615-737-1025. You know what? We've got something to give away, so let's do it now. If you would like a pair of tickets to the Nashville Predators Beer Festival at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, June 20th, be caller number 5 right now at 615-737-1025. Caller number 5 will win a pair of tickets to the Nashville Predators Beer Festival at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, June 20th. Good luck. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. We are all very excited for tomorrow morning when Mahoney, Donick, and the Tennessean Big Red have an opportunity to become D3 baseball national champions. And Willie, I do want to ask you a question because we know how Coach Willie is. I don't know if Mahoney takes after you in this regard. I'm wondering if you or your son have any superstitions, because I'm not sure if you saw this, but Hannah Wells, who plays for Texas's softball team, she revealed that she eats ladybugs for good luck. Did you see this?
I did not see this.
Yes, Hannah Wells eats ladybugs for good luck. ESPN's Holly Rowe reported that sources in the Texas dugout had informed her that Wells, a freshman utility player, eats ladybugs for good luck.
Well, to answer your question, I am definitely superstitious. I don't know about Mahoney. We don't talk about it. That's part of the superstition, I think, is you don't talk about it that much. But I definitely am. And I'm probably crazier watching my kids play with the superstitions than I was as a player, because you're just sitting there thinking about all the different possibilities and you have no control over it. I think when you have no control over something, the more superstitious you are if you're wired a certain way, and I definitely am. But I've never eaten any ladybugs, for the record.
Derek?
Yeah, I had my superstitions. I would, no matter what, I would wake up on Sundays or Mondays, whenever, depending on when we played. I would wake up a certain amount. I would wake up at a certain time every game, especially a noon game. I would wake up a certain time, go to chapel. I would eat the same meal. I would leave the same time, whether it be if we were at home and I'm driving over, or if we took the bus. I was on the first bus each time. And I had that same routine coming in, did the same exact things in the locker room. I wore the same socks, the same T-shirt for, hell, during my whole career, the same pads. I just took them from here to Baltimore to the Jets to Houston. So I had my superstitions. And if they were off just a little bit, I just felt like it's almost like I went in panic mode trying to rectify it.
Now, to be clear, Holly Rowe reported that Hannah Wells does not seek out the ladybugs.
Mm-hmm.
It's if she sees a ladybug, she eats the ladybug for good luck.
Poisonous.
Well, ESPN did do a story about it, and they spoke to a professor of biology who said ladybugs have very little known nutritional value. Well, thank you. I can only
Wow, thank you.
I can only assume that they are not chock full of nutrients, but I just wanted to know if Mahoney...
I thought you were going to say like they had some sort of acid or, poisonous something, like you should not be eating this. I'm glad to know that that's not the case.
Let me find the quote from Alicia Bray, who was a professor of biology at Central Connecticut State University. Quote, "They are very small, typically less than 30 milligrams. A pinch of table salt weighs more than a ladybird beetle. There is just not enough mass to make them worth the effort nutritionally. Combine the very small size with the bitter taste. There is little known nutritional value."
Oh, my goodness.
One ladybug equates to, quote, probably less than 1/10 of a calorie. So, but you know what? If it works for Hannah Wells and Texas,
oh, man,
totally fine. Don't knock it until you try it.
Well, I would refer to you the movie Bull Durham, where Crash Davis is explaining to Nuke Lelouch that you don't mess with a winning streak. If you believe that, some of the what was the garter belt that Susan Sarandon had Nuke Lelouch wearing, if you believe that helps you win, then by golly, that's what you do, basically.
So today, Chris MacFarland, new president of hockey operations and GM of the Nashville Predators, met with reporters for the first time. A lot of interesting sound bites from that news conference. But Chris MacFarland also joined the Chase and Big Joe show. And we'll start with this one because, Willie, you wondered when we talked about Nick Saban's involvement in the GM search process. You wondered about what Chris MacFarland would say about Nick Saban. Well, Chase and Big Joe asked him about it. Here's what he said.
You walk into the meeting with the leadership group, the ownership group, and there's Bill Haslam, who we love, and there's Sean Henry, who's won a Stanley Cup as an executive.
Yep.
And then there's Nick Saban.
Right.
What was that like? Because in the South, Nick Saban, the coach, what was that like when you're like, oh, there's Nick Saban? What was that like for you?
Well, first thing is that he's got that deep voice where he's like, hello, Chris, and it's really like, oh my God, I'm talking to Nick Saban, one of the best to ever do it, and super excited, because for the obvious reasons, right?
Yeah.
Like sports, whether it's talking about hockey X's and O's or football X's and O's, which I look forward to doing with him because I'm a football fan too, but he can offer so much to me. He can offer so much to insight on, to our coaching staff, to Milwaukee, to our young coaching development. There's, challenges that we're going to face in hockey that he would have faced in football, development of young players and roster things. And I can lean on him, for ways that we have to get better off the ice, whether it's in the strength and conditioning room or, whatever. He's going to be a massive resource for me, and super excited to get to know him better.
So there's your answer, Willie, on what Chris MacFarland thought about talking with Nick Saban.
Well, I was glad to hear that. That's a good answer, and I'm really intrigued as Nick Saban continues to move forward. We know, like, where did you say he was today, Adam? He wasn't there today because
he was testifying in front of Congress.
So Nick Saban is a sought after guy. I don't think you're going to see Nick Saban in the, sitting in the suite, up near where the GM sits every game anytime soon. But I do think he seems invested in how this organization unfolds. And I think the more time goes by, he'll probably get more emotionally and more intrigued and more attached to how the team does, especially because now he's got a hand. He's had a hand in this hire, right? This is, how he's, he endorsed this guy. He gave the thumbs up, and I think that only gets you more committed to what happens from here. And on the other side, I think that was a great answer by Chris MacFarland. He wants to learn, right? He wants to pick his brain. Let's see how you can use an asset like Nick Saban to your advantage.
Another question that Chase and Big Joe asked Chris MacFarland during their interview with him on their program earlier today is one of the questions was about Ryan O'Reilly. So as we all know, Ryan O'Reilly, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Willie, entering the final year of his contract with the Nashville Predators. And Ryan O'Reilly has no sort of trade protection in his contract, but Barry Trotz had been open that he was treating O'Reilly as if he did have some sort of trade protection in his contract, that if a team was interested in trading for Ryan O'Reilly, Trotz would consult with O'Reilly before making a decision. Chase asked MacFarland if he plans on honoring that arrangement. Here's what MacFarland said.
Did you and Ryan O'Reilly overlap in Colorado?
When I started there, he was traded about 10 days later. So I know Ryan as a player. Obviously, he's a rock star, two-way, trusted player, and look forward to getting to know him. I had a brief chat with him yesterday.
He's been one of those guys since he signed here that has certainly been a leader in the locker room.
Yep.
And because of that, Barry kind of had a handshake with him of, I'm not going to move you, out of respect unless we're absolutely blown away. Is that something you have to address with Ryan or how do you go about that?
Yeah, I'll probably leave those conversations private, to be honest. Not that I don't trust you guys,
you're already smart,
or your big audience, but I will. I'm going to reach out to not only Ryan, but Philip Forsberg and Brady Shea and Marchessault and Steven Stamkos, and you want your leaders to lead, but I think at the end of the day, players, all of them, whether they're veterans or young guys, they just want honesty. I think they can read through, air quotes, BS or nonsense or whatever word you want to use. And I'm just going to be me. I know what I don't know, but I think they're, if they have a question, they're going to get an honest answer. And where we are as a franchise, I'm going to be honest with them. But Ryan is a good player, and I look forward to having more hockey chats with him.
So I didn't expect MacFarland to say, of course we're going to honor that arrangement, or of course not. But I appreciate Chase asking the question. Derek, we talked about this before the show and at the beginning of the show. My main takeaway from MacFarland's news conference today was this. Clearly, the decision to leave Colorado was emotionally draining for MacFarland. If you listen to the news conference, he got choked up a couple of times as he thanked all of the people in Colorado who helped him get to this point. And I know that some of the sadness is, eased by a brand new title and probably a bump up in tax bracket or two. But it's clear that Chris MacFarland loved his time in Colorado. He has not developed that emotional attachment yet for the Nashville Predators. It's been reported that he has a 6-year deal. By the way, Elliot Freeman will join the program tomorrow at 5. I believe he had that report, among others. So we'll talk to Elliot Freeman. Also, looking forward to talking to Elliot about something other than the Predators GM search. We'll talk about MacFarland, obviously, but I know Elliot's probably relieved that we won't be asking him that question as we have been for the past 4 months. But he has no emotional attachment yet to this organization, to these players, to these coaches, to these scouts, so on and so forth. And I actually think that's a good thing as he enters this offseason, as he tries to figure out what the best path forward for the team is.
And nor should he. This is a fresh slate, a clean slate for everybody. So he comes in knowing that, hey, listen, once I get into the nuts and bolts of this thing, I may have to make some hard decisions. Again, it's not like he's not going to try to get to know these guys, but he understands in getting to know them, he has to be honest with them too. And if he chooses to pivot in another direction because he feels the organization needs it, then his attachment isn't like, and it wasn't a bad thing, but his attachment isn't like it was with Barry or David. He has no attachment to a lot of these players. Majority of these players, he don't. So he can go in there with a fresh set of eyes, knowing some of the background of these players, having, scouted, for them, against them, and have scouted this team. But outside of that, he has to do what's best for this organization. And if it means, parting ways or trading away a particular player, then I think if you're going to do it, then you do it now where there isn't this inherent, sort of bias toward the player.
And one thing, Willie, that MacFarland acknowledged a couple of times is the relative age of the Predators roster. Now, as a whole, the Predators roster skews younger than many of you might think when you look at average age. I haven't looked at it recently, but I do remember near the end of the regular season, the Predators were in the top half of the league in terms of youngest rosters. But their core players, their main players, are all in the latter stages of their careers. Philip Forsberg's in his early 30s. Stamkos, O'Reilly, and Yossi are in their mid to later 30s. And MacFarland understood the challenges of a team when your top players are in that part of their careers. I do think one thing that MacFarland did say today, which is encouraging, is if he does make moves, he is going to target players in the age range I really do think the Predators need. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, Willie, but we know that the Predators have the 30-somethings covered. And we know that the Predators have some up-and-comers in their early 20s. But they are missing that group in the middle, the established 24, 25, 26-year-old NHL players who bridge the gap between the veterans and the up-and-comers. Right now, I think the only player you can put in that category realistically is Luke Evangelista. and the Predators need more of those players. So it sounds like if MacFarland does make additions to this roster, that's the age range he's going to be looking for.
Yeah, he sees what we all see. I don't think that. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And I was curious, as you guys pointed out, that he offered that, right? Because we know he was careful with what he was willing to talk about, and he was careful, like that answer about Ryan O'Reilly, what he was not willing to discuss. So it's no secret around the league that you've got some mid-30s guys in particular that are at a crossroads of their career. And I think it's pretty obvious that Chris MacFarland, he knows that his future is not riding necessarily on how Steven Stamkos and Ryan O'Reilly and Jonathan Marchessault do in the next year or two. He's got to look more big picture. And so I'll ask you guys this, based on everything we said. He's not emotionally attached. He's just getting here. He's got the free reign to do whatever he wants. So you read between the lines. You tell me what you think when you heard that answer about being honest with people. What do you think the honest answer is to Ryan O'Reilly when he sits down with him?
I think it's, if once, because obviously he needs to dig deeper with this roster and in a short amount of time, because the draft is in another 3 weeks, I believe. So he has to dig deep down in his roster. And I think you sort of separate the players. You separate them based upon guys that are veteran players, guys that are still playing well, but maybe also coming toward the end of their contracts. You put those separate from the young guys and some other guys, because then you could take a deeper dive into those players and see how they possibly project with the team moving forward. And if you don't project O'Reilly, moving forward with the team, then I think that's a conversation you need to have with them. Not saying that you're going to trade him, but saying that, hey, listen, if an opportunity, sort of like Barry, if an opportunity comes and we feel it will help the team, then that may be a move that we make, but we're going to talk to you about it. But again, it's not to talk to you and tell you we're not going to make it. It's to talk to let you know that this is what we're doing and why we're doing it.
I think that he's got a lot of respect for Ryan O'Reilly. Every single person in hockey has the utmost respect for Ryan O'Reilly as a player. That is indisputable. But I think it's different when it's the last year of a player's contract. And so I think that is going to be a change of the equation at the trade deadline. Now, the question would be, how do you handle it this summer? What kind of offers might be out there for Ryan O'Reilly this summer if you're the new guy and you're tackling this? Because as I've said all along, every day that Ryan O'Reilly steps onto the ice with your team, the young players who are maybe not in that age range yet, Adam, but will be soon enough, right? They benefit from everything that Ryan O'Reilly and, for that matter, Steven Stamkos and others do for them. So there's a benefit in having Ryan O'Reilly, and he helps you win. You also have the center factor, right? Who's going to play center? Who's going to help Luke Evangelista and Matt Wood and those guys? Who's going to support them if he's gone? That is something you have to consider. But at the trade deadline, when his contract's on the verge of expiring, where the team is at that point, that's very different than last year or the year before. I think where Barry Trotz sat. So there's a lot of options there. And so I am curious. I in trying to read, we're not mind readers, right? But in trying to read between the lines of his answer there to Chase, Chase and Joe did a really good job of just throwing the question out there. I think he's open to, if he had his socks knocked off over the summer, why would you not consider it? But you have to have that conversation with Ryan O'Reilly first.
Quickly, let's go to Adam in Portland on our phone line. Adam, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Well, it's a couple things, man. Number one, have you ever taken a job and like 2 weeks into it, you're like, dude, this guy that was before me sucked. Like, I'm having to fix everything. So that's what I think of. And like, I think it's a weird spot for Barry because we all loved him as a coach, but there's so much this dude's inheriting that's not right. And I think the coach is one of them. Like, if you think for a second that you should fire that coach, you need to fire the coach. Like, don't hang on to mediocrity, man. We are not used to not being in the playoffs, and we can't make the playoffs with him. So that's number one. Number two, of the big three, I'd be curious which one of you guys think is most likely to be moved. But I think of this: he could play out his contract. The new dude could run through his 6 years, and Soros is still going to be here. How crazy is that? It makes me sick. Like, he's got to look at that contract and go, oh my God, what did they sign this dude to a full 8-year no move? Like, I know Willie loves him, and I hope they ask him that. Hey, do you love this guy as much as Willie Donick? Because nobody should. And it's a crazy contract. But
Oh, don't,
that's
Adam.
where
Thank
I'm
you
at
for the
with it,
call.
man. I thought
Don't
he
get
inherited a mess.
don't get
Let's
Willie.
not- it's so
let's-
low.
let's
on the,
not- let's not
go
get
there.
Willie
It's so
started
low
on that
the
right now.
priority list. But he did answer the question about the goaltending today.
Mm-hmm.
And, he has a unique perspective on Justus Onanen because he was involved in drafting him. So I think the question directly to him was about Onanen, and it was not about Soros. But I think he's looking at the goalies and say, I'm set there. I got a lot of other things on the list that I'm looking at. So the Soros thing is so far down on the list. It's not a bad contract. And now you have Onanen, who's really emerging as a guy that's getting better and just coming into the prime age of a goalie. So you got two to work with that. I'm checking that off my list of, hey, I'm putting this over to the side. I'm putting the coaching thing over to the side. You've got to determine what to do with Ryan O'Reilly. That is number one. Do you guys agree? Like, that's where it all starts to me. And then you're looking at everything else. How does he assess the prospect pool? What does he think of all these guys? Those are important questions too. But I think that I don't know what the word to use is, quandary or the what's more valuable, Ryan O'Reilly playing center for this team and helping the young players along, is that more valuable than trading O'Reilly for future assets that won't help you for 4 or 5 years? That is a huge question.
It's very
That's
similar.
not an easy answer.
It's very similar to the conversation we were having about Jeffrey Simmons. I see
Exactly.
I see the two of them in
Yep.
a similar way.
Good point.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your reaction on Chris MacFarland's news conference. You heard Adam in Portland mention Barry Trotz. We will get into later this week how we should remember Barry Trotz's tenure as Predators GM. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, I want to discuss a couple of Titans-related bold predictions made by friend of the show, Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated. We'll do that next. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Okay, time for the latest from Lone Pronto, and the message is very consistent from them. They are going to put you in a better spot, especially if you've got something like a home improvement project that you've been looking to do, but you're thinking, how do I fund it? What's the best way to do it? Well, Lone Pronto wants to use the engine from your home's equity to help you with that particular challenge. You want to make your home more valuable. You want to add that kitchen. You want to add that bathroom. They can do that through the rapid equity loan from Lone Pronto. You borrow from your home's equity. You're going to get a good rate, and you can fund that project. And most people don't realize you can use the equity of your home to your advantage like that. Rates are at near 3-year lows. It's a much more streamlined process than it used to be. Zero out of pocket. Thanks to Lone Pronto. No hard credit pull up front, no appraisal, no long drawn out bank process, and no touching your first mortgage. That's important. So find out how much you can get and what you need and get all the information by going to loanpronto.com or give them a call directly, 615-499-5780. That's loanpronto.com or call 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Friend of the show, Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated, made his 100 bold predictions for the 2026 NFL season. Some of them were serious, some of them were humorous. I looked at all of the Titans-related bold predictions that Orr made, and I thought it would be fun to just run through them quickly. Number 15, John Harbaugh's Giants and Robert Saleh's Titans will have the largest win total improvement of the teams with new head coaches. Orr predicts both the Giants and the Titans will improve by 3 wins each. So that would mean the Titans would win 6 games next season. They've won 6 games combined in the past 2 seasons. So, look, this is where we are as a football watching town. If the Tennessee Titans win 6 games this season, I would consider that successful, wouldn't you guys?
Over the last 2 years or 3 years, they barely
6
won.
combined wins over the past 2 seasons. 6 wins this season, doubling their win total. I mean, look, the bar is low. A lot of it, I mean, we always say this. How does it look? How does Cam Ward look? How does Carnell Tate look? How does Jeffrey Simmons look? So on and so forth. But on the surface, a 6-win team, I think a lot of Titans fans would take that in year 1 of Robert Saleh.
I think they would. Obviously, they would want more, but, you know, doubling a win total from the previous season is sign of improvement. And a lot of it does, you know, hinge on how does the quarterback look in that process. If he looks like he's developing, then everybody's optimistic. But if it doesn't, then I think people tend to be a little bit pessimistic or still a question mark at that position. But I don't think that will be the problem. So out of all those teams that have new coaches, the Ravens, the Jets, no, Jets don't, but Arizona, Pittsburgh.
There are 7 teams. I believe there are 7 teams.
Not Oakland, but LA, the Vegas Raiders.
Here are the teams with new head coaches. Las Vegas with Clint Kubiak. Of course, the Titans with Robert Saleh. The Giants with John Harbaugh. The Browns with Todd Monken. The Dolphins with Jeff Hafley. The Ravens with Jesse Minter. And the Steelers with Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, so there he's basically saying out of all of those teams, the Titans and the Giants. And I don't think that's too far out of the realm of possibility. I think definitely, I believe the Giants will be a better team, you know, because I witnessed, you know, what John Harbaugh can do in his first season as head coach and the demand he has on the team. So I definitely can see that happening. And just the energy around what they're doing here in Nashville. It just seems like everything is sort of coming to this apex of this team's going to be much better than what they were last year.
Willie, number 57 from Connor Orr. The Titans will suffer an outbreak of disease related to the banning of seed oils. He writes,
Oh, wow.
Seed oils, while demonized, are a source of vitamin E. Vitamin E is part of an important group of fat-soluble compounds that attack free radicals within the body. By week 9, Cam Ward will be covertly sneaking various bags, snacks, frozen dinners, chicken nuggets, and mass-market condiments into the facility at a critical juncture during the season.
Connor Orr, he's such a fun guy to listen to. He's a very witty guy. We've had him on our show, as a lot of our listeners know, but I enjoy his stuff for that because he doesn't take himself or his work too seriously, but he at the same time, I think does have a lot of good analysis. Isn't it weird in our lifetimes? And I'm including you in this, Adam, because you're old enough. But DMase could probably cite some other examples from when he and I were real young. Just the cycles that and trends of things to eat. You know, there's one food could go from this is the best thing you could eat, man. You got to eat oatmeal, or you got to eat fiber. All then 5 years or 10 years later, what would you do? You cannot eat this. This stuff isn't very good for you. You got to shy away from this. You got to go over and eat this. So who knows with seed oils? But it is kind of funny with that. But I'll say this too about the previous one. it's a lot easier to go from 3 wins to 6 wins than it is to go from 9 wins to 12 wins. So it's a pretty easy thing he's throwing out there about the Giants and the Titans. And to me, I don't really care if they win 6, 7, or 8 even. It's are they positioning themselves roster-wise to make the jump the following year when they go into the stadium?
Here are some other of Connor Orr's Titans-related bold predictions quickly. Number 16, someone outside of the current betting top 5 will win Offensive Rookie of the Year. That means no hardware for Jeremiah Love, Fernando Mendoza, Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, or Jadarian Price. Number 31, the Colts and Titans will finish 1 win apart from each other. That's an interesting one. And number 64, this one made me laugh. The Jets will win their season opener against the Titans. They will then lose 5 consecutive games against the Packers, Lions, Bears, Browns, and Patriots. As we talked about that day,
that better not happen.
the reaction if the Titans lose to the Jets in week 1, oh man, it's going to be apocalyptic on this show. But the Colts, and quickly, the Colts and the Titans one is interesting, Derek. Orr predicts the Colts and the Titans will finish 1 win apart from each other. He writes, you can take this as a buy low on the Titans and a sell high in the Colts prediction. That's 2 predictions.
Sell high, buy low. I think a lot of Indianapolis's deal is
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones. How does he come back? I mean, before his injury, he was being mentioned as an MVP candidate, and his team was the best team, at least in the AFC. And then when he got hurt, everything just fell to pieces. And then obviously they got to replace one of their wide receivers as well. So, this is a team that I can see if the Titans win 6 games and the Colts win 7, or if the Titans win 8 and the Colts win 7. I can see that possibly happening.
615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
If you've lived in Middle Tennessee for any time, then you've seen how wild our weather can be, from winter storms, tornadoes to flooding. We've seen it all. Like many of you, the winter storm earlier this year caught me unprepared. I lost power for 7 days. The 7 days out of my house, 7 days at a hotel worrying about whether my pipes were going to burst or not. That's when I realized being prepared isn't optional. I will be ready the next time the weather emergency happens. I started looking around for whole home generators and found Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. They've been in business for over 30 years, specializing in generators for more than half of those, which is all great. But the reason I reached out to them and chose to go with them was because of the reviews and the confidence other homeowners shared about their experience with Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. When Tri-State came to my home, they did a free on-site assessment, made sure the generator fit my home for me and my family's needs. The thing I appreciated the most was they didn't try to oversell me. Just straight to the answers, turnkey, and they handle everything from installation to long-term services. If something ever goes wrong, I'm not calling a third party because I hate that. I despise that. What I'm doing is I'm calling Tri-State Water, Power, and Air because they will get the job done. And that's the kind of relationship I want, and I know that's the kind of relationship you want. So listen, the weather isn't slowing down anytime soon. Be ready to call Tri-State Water, Power, and Air today to protect your home and your family. Find them at tristatewhywait.com. That's tristatewhywait.com.
DMase, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. By 3 p.m. Central tomorrow, Willie Donick could be the father of a national champion. Mahoney Donick and the Denison Big Red won the first game of the championship series earlier today. The first game is tomorrow morning in Ohio, and the Denison Big Red, if they win that first game, will be D3 national champions. So, Willie, I know that we're talking to Coach Willie and Dad Willie right now. Just tell us what the plan is for tonight. How are you going to keep your mind off of the game? Because I know that you're nervous as all heck. So what's the plan tonight? How do you keep your mind off of things?
Well, we got a couple things going. We got a nice dinner with some of the families who have made it here. Some of Mahoney's roommates and neighbors who are in his class, in the same dormitory hall and things like that. They've become pretty tight, and so we're going to have a dinner with them. And then young Evie Donick will be flying back up to Cleveland. She wants to be here for the big day tomorrow. So showing unbelievable dedication to get back up to Cleveland, because she had to fly back for some work. And she said, "Dad, can I come back up? I want to come back up." I was like, what are the prices of the tickets? But I was like, all right, this. You never know when this could ever come around again. I was like, let's do it. Come on in. You want to do it? If it's okay with your bosses, let's go. So we're going to pick her up at the airport. And then, of course, people, NBA Finals Game 1. I mean, we've got the backdrop for some good theater tonight. So this is going to be a fun night to keep your mind off of the craziness that's going to happen tomorrow. By the way, if anybody is interested, and you may or may not be, but it's NCAA.org. I'm sorry, NCAA.com has really good coverage, very professional coverage in my mind, with replays and camera angles and stuff like that. It's a good broadcast streaming, absolutely free if you want to watch it. Game 1 will be at 10 o'clock, and then, if necessary, the second game and winner take all game would follow right after that.
I do just want to say, if Denison pulls it off in the first game, I better see Willie Donick on the program tomorrow with the ski goggles on, doused in champagne or Gatorade or something. I need that visual. I don't know if the Big Red players will be popping champagne. Maybe they'll be drinking yellow Gatorade and dousing each other in yellow Gatorade, not green Gatorade, yellow Gatorade. But either way, I want the Willie Donick World Series-esque experience if the first game goes Denison's way.
You know what? I can't promise goggles, but there will be some celebration. There might. I'm not ruling out storming the field.
Okay.
It could happen. It could happen at some point. Let's just hope that will it into existence. So there will be some serious celebration going on.
I predict that the Denison merch will hit an all-time high.
Yes.
There we go.
We'll have to get some national championship shirts for the rest of us.
Oh yeah. Okay. You play your cards right. I see where you're going.
Don't forget who put you on the air every day.
That's right. Okay.
Willie's got some sway.
Yeah, just let Denison.
The baseball program.
What gets talked about a lot is like, hey, Vanderbilt with Diego Pavia. Like, it was famous. I don't know if famous, but the word is out, right? There's with this past year, like, Vanderbilt's a real hot school. I think they accepted less than 2.5% of applicants. It's always been a good school, obviously, but with the Diego Pavia's run and the basketball team doing well, like the number of applicants has really gone up. They talk about that all the time, right? When there's a Cinderella story in the NCAA tournament, a school that doesn't get a lot of hype, they're like, wow, the applicants have gone up. That justifies a lot of investment in athletics sometimes. Denison's women's basketball team won the national championship. Like, I wonder if applicants go up at a place like Denison if because the athletics do well or not. So I don't know.
Well,
we'll find out.
You would have to figure it does, because and I think ADs understand this and presidents do as well. that sports is sort of the front yard of your universe.
Yes.
I mean, your university.
Yes.
Like it's been proven that if your sports teams are doing well, whatever that primary sport is on that college, if that sport team is doing well, the enrollment tends to pick up.
I've told this story before, but the year I was applying for college was the year that George Mason made its miracle run to the Final Four. And George Mason was one of the schools I applied to. And I was so nervous. I was like, I'm not going to get into George Mason now because of the Patriots defeating UConn and going to the Final Four. I did get into the school. I ended up not going, but I did get into the school. So, I mean, I totally understand that point. But, Willie, you mentioned the NBA Finals. Game 1 tonight, 7:30 p.m. Central. Tip-off, Knicks at Spurs. And, Willie, I want your take on this series because Derek and I talked about this the other day. I love that legacies are on the line on both sides in this finals. If the Knicks win, it goes without saying. Those men on that team will never pay for another meal in their lives in New York City. It's been nearly 30 years since the Knicks were in the finals. It's been half a century since the Knicks won a title. And if Jalen Brunson and crew can win it, they are made men for life. On the other side, the Spurs, I think this would cement Victor Wembanyama's global superstardom. So I do think it's a fascinating story. It's a fascinating series, regardless of the outcome, but legacies are on the line.
Legacies are on the line. I just can't wait to watch. This is the kind of thing that happens. Right? I happen to. I'm staying at my uncle's house. He loves the Daily Show, and so he and I were watching it. And Jon Stewart, who's a huge Knicks fan, right? It's well known. He had this funny routine where he said, Victor Wembanyama, he's continuing to grow. Like he says, by the end of the series, he's going to be 14 feet tall. He had these really funny things, and he says, I don't even know where this could go, but he could break through the roof of Madison Square Garden. He had this, but this is the kind of thing that I think gets outside. We were talking about the casual fans for the, what's the interest level in the Stanley Cup final as opposed to this series. I think you put Wemby and you put the New York factor together, and I think you're going to get a level of fan that maybe might be in that category. Yeah, I used to watch the NBA, but I lost touch after Michael Jordan or Magic and all those guys. I think you might have some intrigue come back for this type of thing. I think it's got a chance to do that. I'm excited about that.
This is the ultimate win-win for the NBA from this standpoint. When the Knicks is playing well and they win, it's good for the NBA because the Knicks are one of those staple teams. They're one of the blue bloods, so to speak. So if the Knicks win, I don't think there are many people in the basketball world that would hate this. If the Knicks won, it's not like the Chicago Bulls winning. It's not like the Lakers winning, Boston. It's the Knicks. So if the Knicks win, that's good for everybody. If San Antonio win, Adam just said it, the global recognition goes even higher. Now you have someone in Wembanyama who's a global sensation, which is going to reach others even further than what they're trying now. So for the NBA, this is almost their perfect matchup, is the Knicks versus San Antonio.
Part of me, as I said, wants to see the Knicks win because of how the city would react if they do. On the other hand, I also want to see the Knicks lose because of how the city would react if they do.
So who would be, okay, thinking of that, because some teams, like the Boston Celtics, for instance, if they won the championship, Laker fans would hate it, definitely.
Right.
But then everybody, it's just like, Boston won. Or if the Lakers won, Boston fans would definitely hate it, but then the goodness, the Lakers. I'm not sure. One, I don't think the Knicks have that rival where a team, maybe the Indiana Pacers, their fan base say we hate it. But outside of that, I think
the Sixers.
Yeah, maybe the Sixers, but the Sixers haven't been the
But-
Sixers.
But Philadelphia and Boston specifically, there
Yeah,
is no love lost
exactly.
between those two cities and New York City.
Absolutely.
So-
But I'm saying, like, if the Knicks won, I think there would be like this. Okay, there wouldn't be this hatred toward the Knicks winning the championship. At least I don't think it would be, whether you're a Knicks fan or not.
I don't know. It's a good question, but I am curious to see how it plays out. Game 1 tonight in San Antonio. That'll do it for us today. Hopefully, the next time we talk to Willy Donick, his son is a national champion. Good luck to the Tennessean Big Red tomorrow. Finish it off in the first game. No need for two. Finish it off in the first game. Elliot Freeman, Sportsnet NHL Insider, will join us tomorrow at 5. We'll get his reaction to the hiring of Chris MacFarland and maybe some more insidery nuggets on that whole process. But in the meantime, have a wonderful evening. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music. Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. We will be back on these airwaves starting at 3 p.m. tomorrow on 102.5. And as I always say, we're going to be talking and
You're going to be listening.
absolutely. Peace. Go Mahoney, Big Red.